Good evening, staff, fellow counselors. Just a friendly reminder, if you're not speaking, to please mute your microphone so there's no background noise. Appreciate that. I'd like to call to order the Finance Administration Committee meeting of September 7th, 2021, first day of school. Welcome back to all the students and teachers. It's been a long summer, and I'm sure there's some that are glad to be back and some that aren't. This meeting will be held electronically and transmitted via council chambers, which is located at 39 South Shore Road in Lake Cowichan, as per Ministerial Order M192. Before we start, I would just like to acknowledge that the Subats First Nation and the town of Lake Cowichan have shared values in economic, environmental, and sustainable planning as we live and share lands that we occupy. So with that, I will look for any introduction of late items on this agenda. Seeing none, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Mayor Day, seconded by Councillor Sandhu. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Business arising and unfinished business. Under A is the Municipal Hall upgrade update. Joseph, would you like to take this?
Yes, giving you a synopsis of just where we're at in terms of the status of the building. As you can see, half the building is down. And met with the architects this morning, and they're investigating some storm pipe issues and trying to rectify that. The tender documents should have been issued by now. The architect tells me it'll be next week. So hopefully we will be up and running in terms of getting something going here in terms of construction, the actual construction of the building. Otherwise, I think I've given you a fairly detailed report here. I'm not sure if you've got any questions relating to that.
It is a good report. I just wanted to mention that. I appreciate that. But if there is any comments or questions, I'll recognize Councillor Vomaca, please.
Thank you. Question to the CAO. I know we have 1.6 million in the budget, and will that bring us to completion with the rising cost of construction?
It'll probably be a little bit of a shortfall, but we have next year. This is going to tide over 2 years. Project's not going to be completed this year, so we will be looking at some additional funding from you for next year. And I know that the question has been raised as to whether it would make sense to sell this location. The issue with that is we're sitting on the riparian areas. We're within 30 meters of the river, and so for anybody else to undertake construction here would be quite difficult. The town can get away with it because we're at an existing spot. We have the existing footprint, so we can continue to work on this building, but anybody else will have to go through a process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mayor Day, please.
Yeah, and just a comment to that too, like we're already probably close to $500,000 into the project with all the architect fees up to this stage, and the construction that's already begun, the tenders that have been awarded for the deconstruction. So I don't think that would be wise to move to another way of thinking at this time. And I'm happy to see we're going ahead on this site.
Okay, no further comments, questions? Seeing none, we will move on. No delegations or representations, no correspondence. And for the first time under the new council bylaw, we will not have input. We will wait for question period at the end as usual, but we do have reports. First report will be the Director of Finance, and that's the financial report for the period ending August 31st, 2021. Ms. Gill, please.
Thank you, Councillor McGonigal. So the report is there. We're down to 8 properties that are still in tax sale. That'll be held September 27th here in council chambers. The town has purchased a backhoe at a cost of $176,015, as was planned in the budget. The old John Deere. Hold on one sec while we mute the other computer to stop this feedback. Okay, is that a little bit better? Okay. Okay, so where was I? So yes, we sold the old John Deere tractor. The sale of that is reflected in the sale of assets account. It was sold for over $50,000. Work will soon begin on the visitor center and the public works roofs. We've also awarded the asset appraisal for insurance purposes to Suncorp Valuations at a cost of $7,500. Lakeview Park is the reservation system closed after the long weekend. Walk-in camping will still be allowed there until September 26th weekend. There'll be minimal staffing out there. The visitor center will also remain open till that date. And just a friendly reminder that it is closed on Wednesdays. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. Looking at my colleagues for any questions or clarification. Councillor Sandu, please.
Thank you, Councillor McGonigal. Just a question under bylaw enforcement and other emergency measures. The budget was 5,000 and the actual to date is $49,779. So I was just curious what that
Good
is.
question. Yeah, good question. So those are the costs that town has incurred to date for sending the firemen to help in the wildfires. And the money that will be coming back from those is shown under revenues as BC wildfire recoveries. So there is going to be an offset to that. So there is additional expenses that weren't budgeted there, but that'll be covered off by the additional revenues from the Office of the Fire Commissioner.
Great. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, anyone else on the financials? And again, if you're reading through those on one dark, gloomy night and you have a question, feel free. I'm sure Ms. Gill would be happy to respond either in person, properly masked, physically distanced, et cetera, or by email or phone. Thank you very much, Ms. Gill. Appreciate that. Up next is B, the building inspector's report for August. It's just for information. Any comments on that? Joseph? You're muted, sir. Sorry.
This has been the best years in a long time in terms of the number of building permits that have been issued. But by the same token, not a lot of completions. People are fairly slow in getting their buildings completed. And if you look at the building report, if you look at the single dwellings, the current year shows us 28 and taken out in current months is 3. So a total of 31 were taken out this year. 2 have been completed. And if you look at last year's 20 taken out, none completed. So it gives you an indication how things are moving along and yet not moving along fast enough.
So if I could piggyback on that comment, the 20 that were from the previous year, they have 1 calendar year to
They've got 2 years. They've
2 calendar years, and then they have to reapply.
That's right.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Anyone else on the building inspector's report? Again, that was just for information. Next, under D, would be the Director of Finance report on the permissive tax exemption for 20 South Shore Road. Would you like to comment on that, Ms. Gill, please?
She's on mute.
Sorry, yes, I can comment on the outline, summarize the memo. I've prepared a table that shows the assessments for the 20 South Shore Road property. Previously, from 2009 to 2020, they were 50% exempted from their taxes. So the third column over shows the taxable value that they paid tax on right back to the beginning, starting in 2001. So, and the last column there, property taxes paid, is a summary of the taxes that were paid each year. So I think when we exempted the property back in 2017, the assessment was 1.8 million roughly. And subsequent to the property tax exemption bylaw having been passed, they were also granted a huge reduction in their assessment, which dropped in 2018 from 1.8 million to 587,000. So that was a huge reduction in the assessment, 68.5% reduction in their assessment. So with that, the taxation revenue for them was also reduced by about 70%. So 2021, there was no exemption. And you can see there that the assessment was 667,000 for that building. The taxes paid were roughly $5,400. They're now seeking, they've made an application to provide, requesting a permissive tax exemption, which is something that can be done by bylaw. And that is a decision for council. So we're looking for direction before we prepare any such bylaw, should that be council's decision.
Looking for input from my fellow councillors. Did I see your hand, Councillor Vanaka?
I question to Ms. Gill, why was their assessment, why is it dropped so much? Because that's barely, an upscale house in Lake Cowichan.
That's true. Assessments are done strictly by BC Assessment with no input or discussions with the town. My assumption it was done because it is some of the units in that building, I do believe it says 18 or so in the building of the 31 are subsidized housing. So it's a not-for-profit on that basis. So that would be a guess on my part as to why the assessment was dropped, but I don't know entirely.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. How does this compare to Olson Manor?
Tax-wise, well, it's hard to compare. It's hard to compare because the number of units are less and the age of the building. This one is newer. So it doesn't really compare well, although I do believe the taxes paid by them, that building, are more than the taxes paid per unit in this building and any other building in Lake Cowichan, substantially less. If you take $5,400 and divide by the number of units, it's 31 units in that building. It's not a lot of taxes per unit.
Good, thank you.
Clarification, Joseph, or you had some
Yeah,
input?
on that issue that was raised earlier, there is no permissive exemption for Olson Manor, just for council's information.
I recognize Councillor Austin next.
Thank you. So they are again asking for a 50% reduction in assessment. Is that correct?
No, they're just asking for a permissive exemption. There's no amount stated.
Oh,
So it's the council.
Okay.
Okay, for now, Councillor Austin, I can move on. Anyone else? Councillor Sandu? Sorry, I thought I seen your finger. Mayor Day.
Oh,
It's easy to do.
There we go.
Hi again. Yeah. So some 11 or 12 years ago, when I first got into local government, I had difficulties with raising taxes and the need to raise taxes every year. But finally, I was able to justify it by a definition in a dictionary, and it was the fair and equitable distribution of wealth. So when I look at this scenario on this piece of paper here on my screen, that I think it's gotten to the point now where it's not fair anymore, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So I'm sure the people that are looking for the tax exemption would disagree with me, but it's gotten down to the point at $53.93 in property taxes paid that say if it was half of that, that wouldn't be fair to the rest of the residents in the community. So that's just how I feel about it. And I think that's also reflected in the comments below from the CAO. So but that's how I feel at the moment. Happy to hear other opinions.
Great. Anyone else before I chime in? I think the original intent was to offer, as asked for, the exemption for those units that were subsidized through the government. And I do not have a problem with a continuation of that, given that the assessment from 2020 to 2021 has gone up almost 100%. So regardless of the assessed value, the intent of that exemption was for those subsidized units. Having seen the assessment go from a high of 1.9 to the current level of 667 is far out of our control. That's nothing that we do have an interest in. BC Assessment, as our finance director had said, is the sole provider of those assessed values. And unlike most other units within the town of Lake Cowichan, this one has seen a reduction and not an increase. But the intent all along was for a exemption within those subsidized units as was asked for. And I would be more than happy to accommodate that again in the 2021 year. And I don't know what the amount would be, but I'm not going to make a motion or anything. I'm just giving my point of view and historical aspect of what transpired when the first ask came. So anyone else on this? Or do we have a motion of any sort that someone would like to make? There are comments from the CAO, and he's recommending in the last line there not to consider. So I'm looking for direction from my comrades. Councillor Austin, please.
I'll make that motion of following through with the CAO's recommendation.
And that would be not consider providing a
To
permissive
not
tax.
consider providing permissive exemption tax at this time. Now, is this just a one-year thing, or how often does this go?
I believe they could reapply for the next tax year, but that would be for this taxation year. Did you second that, Councillor Sandu? Okay. Any further discussion on that? Mayor Day, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And given the contents of your comments there, could staff or yourself explain a little better to me how the exemption, I just got to understand the whole formula, how it goes to the subsidized units and the others are not being subsidized by this, because the way I feel that it is that their business model, well, I don't know how they do it, but it would sort of seem to me that they're using this reduction to keep the rents down for all units, but I could be wrong.
And I'll let staff answer on the intent of that exemption. I've given you historically what I recall when it was presented by that group at its initiation, but I'm not sure on the exact percentage of units. I believe 50% were subsidized, but 18 of the 31, I believe. So that's almost a little more than 50%. But if staff wants to clarify or correct me, I'd be happy. It would appear.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I don't have the application in front of me. It might only be, I'm not sure if it was 18 or 13. However, I do believe when the original exemption was provided, they had a bathing unit that was open to the public that anybody could use. which is something they no longer have. I do believe it wasn't based on the number of units that were subsidized and not, and the subsidized units are getting funding through the government as well.
Okay, hopefully that helps. Yes, Councillor Vomack, please.
Hi, thank you. So I'm looking back at 2001 and the taxes that were paid. So now in 2021, the assessment is about just not quite 1/3. And if you look at the taxes now are still proportionate. So they're still 1/3 of that assessed value. So when you go from 1.5 million, you're paying almost 17,000. Now you're down below 1/3 to 667,000. You're still at that same proportion, even though the amounts change.
Thank you. Councillor Sandhu, please.
Well, I would look at this myself differently if the assessment was in, from 2017 and up. But I feel in my decision of not supporting this is the last 3 years with the permissive exemption they got, that for 2021, I just don't think we are in a position to allocate at this time that a 50% exemption on that dollar amount of the value of the assessment. So I can't support this. I do support this motion, sorry.
Anyone else? Just to clarify on Councillor Vomack's 2001 assessed value, you'll note that in 2009 was the, I believe that was the application for the exemption. So just so there was no exemption up until that time. Any other comments or questions? So I will call the question on the motion that council not consider providing a permissive tax exemption for the property discussed. All those in favor? Those opposed? I will raise my hand as opposed. And that motion carries. I did miss report number C, the Lake Cowichan Fire Department incident report, because I was so excited to get to the permissive tax exemption. So I will go back to that one. And it's for July 2021. I'll be looking for a motion to expend $14,620.21 for the month of July 2021 on the fire incident report. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Austin and a seconder. Seconded by Mayor Day. Any questions or comments on that? Mayor Day, please.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. So, this is a slightly higher month than previous months. And I noticed that we had to go on a duty roster, and if staff could clarify that, is that just for a couple days of the month, or was that for what timeframes did that have to be taken into or put into effect? And then there's an officer member duty sheet for the total of 2,873. So if you could explain those totals to me, thank you.
We'll have to get back to you on that.
So they'll get clarification from the fire chief, and and we'll get that response to you personally, Mr. Day. That works. But you will note to lift assist, ambulance assist, we've been discussing the impact on volunteer fire departments on understaffed ambulance stations. So it does show in this report as well as to the impact that does have. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. Get back. And now I'll go to E, That's the CAO on commission membership appointment for the Advisory Planning Commission. Mr. Fernandez?
Yes, there was a vacancy caused by a member resignation earlier in the year. And as a result, we've had to advertise for the vacancy twice. And this time we did get an application, just one application from a Miss Lidster, Beth Lidster. And she seems very interested in being a commission member. And we had a discussion on what she thought of the town, and it appears that she just moved here from another community, and she is very interested in this community and wants to make sure that it develops in the way she has a vision for the town. She thinks she can benefit the town in that respect. So that's why I think it's because we have a meeting coming up at the end of September, it would be useful to have a full roster again on the APC.
Great. And I do note that she held a similar role to us at one point
Yes, indeed.
in the past, so we won't hold that against her. Perhaps encourage her to put her name forward next October. Anyways, the recommendation is to appoint this member to the commission. Would someone like to make that motion? Mayor Day moves, seconded by Councillor Bomaka. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please. Opposed, if any? That motion carries. We will have a full slate for the APC for September's meeting. Great. So moving to new business, A, new electronic meetings framework. Joseph?
Yeah, the ministerial order under which you're operating now, the M192 expires at the end of this month, the 28th actually. But you have another 90 days to carry forward with the electronic meetings until you've got something in place different than what we have in place now, which is meeting in person. But you can make changes to the procedure bylaw allowing for continued electronic meetings. So that is something that council will have to decide.
And are you looking for that direction tonight?
Not necessarily, just information at this point. We can come back. I'm also checking with some of the other communities, and maybe I can do a little written report on that for the next meeting.
Would you like a view of how council feels on that
That'd be helpful.
around here? Okay,
Sure.
I'll look at my colleagues and see what your interest is. I'll start because I'm the first one in the middle here. I think we should continue with the Delta variant on the uptick. I think it's important that we continue on in a virtual format, unfortunately. I've been lobbying to try to get back to in person, but that's when the numbers were significantly lower. So I would be in support of moving forward with continuation of this, given monthly updates and then deciding procedurally what the next step may be. I'm just concerned that if we go back to virtual, that we will not have this format for YouTube and other options for people to watch or have it recorded. And maybe there is that option to have that done. But at this time, I would like to continue virtually. Anyone else? Councillor Bomaka, I recognize first.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you, Councillor McGonigal, at least for now, because until we have the town hall constructed and we have ways for people to be able to watch via Zoom, I think it's a good idea for now to continue, especially with the ongoing variants, which now we're seeing them in our community. So I think we may want to go back to in person, but I have a feeling that a lot of our residents may not want to. And truth be told, it's not like we had a huge percentage of people that wanted to come to the meetings. So this may be a short-term solution.
Great. I recognize Councillor Austin next, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to stay virtual for now. I think it's working quite well and people are watching us on YouTube, which I think is important. Yes, I agree.
Mayor Day?
Thank you very much. And I agree with everybody's comments about with the variant that we should continue this. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page that when we continue, and I think we probably said this before, but maybe it would give the staff a chance to look through maybe on Amazon or something for or another place for equipment to make sure that we can continue our live streaming and YouTube channel. Because I don't personally think that's a step we want to stop having as a way for people to watch meetings. So I'd like to see us be ready for that time when the time comes that we can all be together again.
Councillor Sandu, any input?
No, just agree with what everybody has said. We stay virtual until basically our province is under control with this Delta variant and whatnot.
I hear that a lot in my other role as the CBRD representative for the municipality. I agree with the 14 previous speakers on the comments that have made. No, all in jest. I think you have your direction, Mr. Fernandez. If we need to change the procedural bylaw, I think we should probably bring that forward at this month's council meeting, as it is expiring at September 28th. So your choice, but it looks like we're all in agreement to continue on the electronic format for now. Anything further, Joseph?
The only issue is it says local governments must not amend their procedural bylaws before September 29th. So which means I may not be able to bring it till the October meeting. I can give you a report.
Yeah, and in that report, because UBCM will be held shortly before that as well. So it'll be interesting to see what other communities are doing. And again, we could have a special meeting to amend that if need be.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think we know where we're going from here. Any notices of motion? I did not see any at the start. Here's your opportunity if you do have one. Public relations items. Anyone have any? I'm going to start with Councillor Vomaka.
Oh, sorry. It's vague to me, but I was sent an email yesterday and I believe there's an open house up at Lake Town Ranch that was advertised in the newspaper for Thursday, 6 p.m. So just to make the public aware, I know it's not in our municipal boundary, but it still affects us in our community.
Correct. Thank you very much. And I have Councillor Austin next.
I was going to mention that as well. I thought that would be very interesting to go to on Thursday. And also we have our litter cleanup and river cleanup this Sunday. And there's also the Crusher bike race, which is on. So there's quite a bit of stuff going on this weekend. So it should be quite interesting. I'm wondering with the river cleanup, does the Tube Shack still rent tubes that day, or are they pretty well closed? So what if someone else comes with tubes to go down the river? What do we do? What does anybody do?
They go down the river.
They
You
feel
don't-
funny with the divers underneath them, so that should be a hoot, but we'll see how that goes.
Perfect. I have Councillor Sandu and then Mayor Day.
If our CAO could just explain, or our public works superintendent, like what the town is doing for the community cleanup, just the allocation of the garbage bags and the garbage cans.
I can do that. Garbage bags are available here at the town office. They have to be picked up by 4:30 Friday. And we are setting up 4 totes at the covered area at Sewell Park. And the river cleanup people will be taking care of those. And then by 2 o'clock, they will empty those and
Central.
return those to the same spot. So I think that's about it. They're helping us with it.
Covered area at Saywell was the
Correct.
drop-off. Great.
Yeah.
Mayor Day, you were next.
Yeah, just might not want to leave out the first regular season game of the Kraken is Friday night at puck drops at 7:30.
Absolutely. And Sunday is a busy day. I first of all want to send my best wishes to the Mayo family as they struggle through a difficult diagnosis. There's a bottle drive on Sunday for them as well, and also a event at Mellor Hall. So if I am not at the cleanup, I will be attending one of those functions, and I send my regrets for not being afforded the opportunity to help clean up the community. I'll pick up the garbage around my neighborhood on Saturday, and that'll be my contribution. But I want to wish Dustin and Crystal all the best as they move through that difficult diagnosis. So we're all with you. And with that, I think it's, if there's nothing else, I think that's the first time we've all had a contribution in public relations item. Great. We're all back at school too. We're going to pause 3 minutes for questions. You can email your questions to general@lakecowichan.ca or call in to 250-749-6681. And that's on items that were on the agenda tonight, the Finance Administration. We will reconvene at 5:39.
Oh, this meeting. Let's do.
And we're at 5:39. Wait for Councillor Pomaka and Councillor Austin to join us in their video feed. They have returned into the Hollywood Squares, so I believe we are ready. Any input from the public tonight, Joseph?
There is no communication from anyone for this meeting.
Thank you very much. And with that, we're looking for adjournment of this meeting. Moved by Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Councillor Pomaka. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. We'll stay here on this invitation and perhaps 5:50 reconvene for sustainable planning. How's that work? Thank you very much, staff, counselors. Good input. See you.